tonight's topic is liberalism. What do we really know? So we're going back to it. This is our third look at liberalism. And I want to go back and literally press play on the video that we were last looking at, where I had to press pause because we've run out of time. But there was still plenty of that video to watch. So that video is one of the Winston Marshall Show's interviews, and it's an interview of Lionel Shriver, who's a female psychologist, and the topic is about the shocking psychology of liberal women. And she's got some interesting discoveries and perspectives on it. So let me bring that on stage. Here we are. And let's get into it. So she had just started covering the topic of women, motherhood, and the politics of immigration. So we're going to press play from, if you want to know what was said before this, literally just before this, and the whole video beforehand, it's in my two previous videos covering liberalism, but also the link to the entire interview is in the description box below this live stream. So yeah, let's go back to this.
One would think that when women, I don't know what the numbers are for Britain, but for the States, but in Britain now, something like 25% of women are not having children by 30. No, sorry, over half of women don't have their first child until they're over 30. Half of whom don't have a child at all. So a quarter of women now.
Not always by choice, actually. Some of it is just too much delay, and then and so it just doesn't happen.
Yes, quite. That's a lie I think the progressives told women, is that you can wait and wait and wait.
Yeah, and there's always IVF. They don't realize
how
complicated, expensive, and often failed it is.
Yeah, that's been a terrible lie that progressives have told women. And maybe part of the pushback is the women don't realize, forgive me if this sounds off coming from a man, but maybe these young women have been robbed of something and they are reacting, they don't realize how they're reacting against that phenomenon. Is that a bit too much of a stretch?
I think women have been told one way or another, in that sneaky way that cultures work, that motherhood is low prestige. It has no status. It's what you resort to when you're not really important. I mean, that's a terrible thing to have brought about.
It's evil. It's the highest prestige thing.
It should be, but we can say that until we're blue in the face. It doesn't make people feel it. I didn't have kids. That would have been an ingredient. I think it would have been an ingredient in my not having children. It was low prestige, and I wanted to make my mark. I did not want to spend my time wiping up sick when, I had what I regarded as a higher calling. And I think this is an ingredient in the people who do decide not to have kids. And that percentage has gone way up. Just like, why would I want to do that? It's grunt work. And that is that having evolved that perception, that's a collective sin that our culture has portrayed motherhood. And I think people pick this up very early as just a completely low-rent job. So, and as a job that will never get any gratitude. and if anything, will be punished. Especially, I mean, right now we have something like 10% of the U.S. population has gone no contact with at least one member of their family, if not the entire family. Yeah, it's a thing.
So it's beyond just having children. It's the family itself is breaking up at every level.
Yes, and the sense that, I mean, a lot of this is parent-child, obviously, and so it's the kid who's going no contact with the parents, and talk about thankless. When that's that commonplace, it makes parenthood seem like even an even riskier proposition than it used to be.
So it self-perpetuates.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that from? Is that sort of hyper-individualism? It's sort of the
Oh yes, it's all about self-involvement. It's the constant. I mean, I'm afraid our school systems have encouraged this. Our conversation is wandering a bit, but the whole focus on the self. I think a lot of the reason that depression and anxiety become so prevalent is that they're the consequence of looking inward all the time and not finding very much. And that's depressing and makes you anxious. I mean, I think our whole model of growing up, the whole idea of character has changed, and we tend to think of people as now pre-extant. Character is something that you discover. No, it isn't. I think we need to go back to an earlier version of what it means to become someone, to grow up, to have an identity. It's something you build. That used to be a commonplace expression, building character. You went through character building exercises. And that means conceptually that you do not start out as something marvelous in particular that you can discover or unearth. You start out as kind of all over the place, and maybe you have certain proclivities, but you need to firm up. You have to learn to do things. You have to learn about the world. It's an outward experience, which makes you into someone in particular.
Yeah.
And so the way you create an identity is not sitting around worrying about how you feel all the time, but going out and doing something and meeting people and learning a new skill and humbling yourself in relation to all that you don't know, in order that you may come to know some of it. And I really think that we have created misery by making people chronically and pathologically self-conscious.
And safetyism is what sort of it's the
Same
opposite now.
thing.
It's that we prioritize safety.
Yeah. So you have it, rather than go out into the world, encounter other people, you put a fence around yourself and make sure that nothing gets in. Oh, great.
Do you not see the irony in what we're saying? So safety around themselves, but not around
the country.
Around the country. But
it makes perfect sense. If you're completely self-absorbed, you don't care about the country.
Right. Okay. So actually, they put themselves. That's what they put in that black
I'm
hole.
afraid that that's at the core of the whole progressive mentality. It is obsession with the self. It's all about a kind of vanity, and at the same time, you're dealing with people who are actively miserable, who keep looking for something inside themselves that isn't there, because you would need to go out and build it. It's not something that is discoverable. And at the same time, these are people who need a sense of belonging. They're destroying all the natural institutions to which one might belong. And so they need their sense of belonging. They need a sense of purpose. So, and I'm sympathetic with the need for a sense of purpose.
Yes. So what we're kind of going through is the individualist endgame. This is Enlightenment individualism at its we've got right to the border.
Yes. And you're dealing with a kind of absolute freedom which moves into nihilism. Right? I mean, this whole, I think the whole concept of identity now that and especially look at what's happened in relation to sex, the 150 genders or how many they're counting now.
151, you bigot.
Oh, sorry. I probably left someone out. And the constant pushing against any kind of norm. So it's this, again, as you said, the radical individualism. There are no limits. There are no boundaries. We make fun of people behind the trans activism. Oh, does that mean that you can decide one day that you're a bunny or a chair? And it's not, we're really at the point where that's not even absurd. It's not. I want to be a chair. Well, yeah, you can be a chair and we'll sit on you. We'll validate your existence, your identity. But when you're dealing with this kind of absolutely no holds barred freedom, no norms, people get lost.
Yeah.
It's frightening and it's scary, and it's, what you're dealing with is in permitting everything, you have formlessness. And it's the opposite of giving you an answer. It's we come back to our subject. You have no boundaries. People need boundaries. And they need norms. In fact, you need norms even to be a weirdo.
Yes, quite.
No norms, no weirdo. I was a weirdo as a kid, and I would be lost as a child now because I wouldn't have that identity. It's not available to anyone anymore.
Yes, you need that.
I mean, wearing purple hair ain't interesting.
Yes, if everyone's wearing purple hair.
Right.
You would think then that when women end up having children, if they have children, that they might change back and swing back to the right. I don't know the data on this, but there was a meme going around that was quite funny this weekend, which is that a young girl had her friend pass her baby to hold her baby. And this young girl young woman, I should say, she was probably in her late 20s. And she burst out into tears and was like, she'd never wanted a child. And then she was like, I want one.
Wow.
And someone joked that this is all you have to do to factory reset a woman is put a baby in her arms. And the joke was that all you have to do to factory reset a man is shove him down a foxhole. But I wondered then, why, because I know I spent a lot of time in New York and lived there. It's not just childless women, it's also mothers in these areas. I imagine Minnesota, there's plenty of mothers who also take this position, this anti-borders position that we've been exploring. And I wonder why is it just cognitive dissonance that they don't understand, they don't see the danger that open borders poses to their infant, or how can we understand the sort of the liberal mother?
Well, there's a certain naivete there in the sacralization of the minority. Then they become harmless. If they're sacred, why would they be dangerous? So the Democrats,
so it's ideology.
Yeah, the Democrats are always playing down the level of criminality. I think in the U.S., they've definitely fixed the figures in order to minimize it, because it's important that these are just innocent, lovely people seeking a better life, hence my title. And that
Because it is a mother in
Yes.
presence, yeah.
Yes, and
Who takes in
the mother in my book is typical of the
yes.
kind of people we're talking about. Although I actually think she's more reasonable and rational and less screamy than most of her counterparts in real life. But she takes a migrant into her home and alienates her own son in doing so. He's more conservative than she is, and he I think he feels a little bit in the book. He feels little bit replaced.
So, hang on a minute. I mean, that doesn't surprise me that these kind of women are like that. But to think that she might be less screamy, I don't know. I think that might be delusional. I think it just might be a case of this woman, Lionel Shriver. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I think she just possibly hasn't seen this woman pushed or triggered, should I say, because I know someone who seems so reasonable and calm and cool and collected and, you know, absolutely fine. But as soon as there's any hint of having a different kind of thought around, let's say, climate change, anything different from the far left narrative that, you know, the end is nigh, we could just blow up tomorrow. Yet they go out and get themselves a second car, a gas guzzling camper van, and, you know, they do this, that, and the other, and they're not being environmentally friendly at all. But they will just all of a sudden flip and scream at someone, like the red in the face and the anger and the vitriol. It just comes out of nowhere from within them as soon as someone expresses just the slightest hint that they might have a difference in opinion. That's there. And it's scary, like, it's traumatizing to people on the receiving end of that shit. So I wonder if Lionel Shriver just hasn't come across that kind of behavior in the person that she's talking about yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just can't think that that person wouldn't be like that when in the same breath Lionel Shriver is describing that this woman invites a heap of criminal cack into her home, and this criminal cat gets priority over her own son. That's how bad these people are. Yeah, just my thoughts thus far anyway. Let's get back to this.
The migrant comes in and she's a paragon. You know, she cleans the house all the time. The house starts reeking of bleach. She does all the cooking and shopping. She's bubbly and lovely, and the son is surly and incommunicative, and so she becomes the better child, the better adoptive child, and there's a constant parallel in the book because obviously she's therefore representative of the new Americans who are better Americans than the native population. In fact, there's a dialogue in which the Honduran immigrant Martine says, I make a better American than you do. You know, I'm hardworking. I'm what Americans basically used to be like, and you're a layabout, just metaphorically and literally spending your inheritance and not building anything. And she's got a point. Actually, the book is much more balanced than it's getting credit for, because, you know, the usual suspects on the progressive side spot that this is not a book that is wholly enthusiastic about mass migration, yes, and therefore it is an evil book. But the truth is,
how
that
dare you not produce propaganda?
the native population does not get off lightly in this novel, since it's germane to our population, our conversation. There are 3 grown kids in this novel, and none of them have children. And this is another thing that the immigrant points out. Like, sorry, but in something like 70 years, all of your family is going to be dead. Who's going to get the house? And the son says, okay, well, let me have it for the next 70 years and I'll leave you the keys. But that's the country. The house is the country. And if we're not, and if we are not willing to give birth to and raise another generation, then other people are going to take our place, and we deserve it.
So where Michel Houellebecq in his famous book Soumission ends with the Islamization of France and playing into those conspiracy theories, you're actually playing into the Great Replacement conspiracy theory.
Ultimately, yes. But that's just being practical. And it also means that part of your responsibility of maintaining your civilization, your nation, is to maintain your borders. I mean, this performative shame that we were talking about, it does have real life consequences. It does mean, we have no right to keep anyone out of the country because we're so unworthy. And anyone from outside the country is worth more than we are, because we have done terrible things in our history. Now, they may not actively feel the kind of emotions that go with genuine shame and guilt, but the kind of policies that they are advocating do express genuine shame and guilt. That is, and this is intensely the case in the United States. Nation of immigrants, we have no right. The progressives really think we have no right to keep anyone out. Anyone who wants to come to the United States should be able to come there. Of course, at the same time, they maintain it's a horrible country. But then you let all these deserving, lovely people to come into the horrible country. You would think that you would want to keep them out just in their interest. Right?
It's also strange because America, I think, is the most generous country in the world when it comes to immigration. Something like
Absolutely.
1 million legal migrants every year into America.
Not to mention, the millions of people who came in under the Biden administration.
Yes, quite.
Illegally.
That's often forgotten. I think it's a lot higher than quote unquote liberal countries like Canada. Britain are giving it a run for its money now, if you include illegals.
Actually, if you multiply it out, because Britain's about the 5th the size of the US, the UK is giving the US a run for its money in terms of how many immigrants they're bringing in.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to ask about what sort of the conservative fallacies are, but I think one has been implicit in our conversation, which is that if those who, let's say, fear Great Replacement, what are they doing exactly about having babies? And I would maybe say, look at the conservative politicians here, although many conservative politicians argue for migration, for the economy and to grow GDP. But leaving aside those ones who I think are sort of part of the progressive worldview, shouldn't they be doing more, particularly around the economy, to encourage women and families, firstly to exist as families, but also then to have children? I've just come back from Hungary, and there they are trying, and they've had some success, and it's been difficult. I could certainly go into detail on that. But is that the blind spot of the conservatives? It's like they're anti-immigration, but they're not actually pro have lots of babies. Why are families not having 7, 8, 9 children like they were 100 years ago?
I don't know how much difference it would make if the Conservative Party told you to have babies. And in fact, it might have the opposite. You're probably familiar with the experience of economic incentives for having children. They don't work. I mean, the whole pronatal policy, about all it's ever seems to accomplish is bringing forward of people who were going to have children anyway. They have them a little sooner. That's about it. And then the effect subsides. It doesn't. People constantly tell you, oh, especially in the likes of London, I'd love to have a family, but we can't afford it, or we can't buy a house. But in general, that ends up being excuse making, because when this has happened before and you offer people money or tax exempt status or free childcare, there are all kinds of incentives you can do. In this country, gosh, even permitting joint filing for couples in taxes would make a huge difference. So it would be easier for one of the parents to stay home, and you wouldn't, and the parent who worked wouldn't be taxed as if it was just one person. You could equal them out. You can still do that in the States. And that was changed here, first of all, to make the state more money, and then also to push women into work. So that, but all you can come up with various policies that you would think would make it more attractive to have children. But if you look at the previous experiences in other countries with these aggressively pro-natalist economic and tax policy, they don't work.
I'm going to challenge you on that, because I don't think you're right.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, Hungary's having a little success.
So Hungary had pretty good success until the beginning of the Ukraine war, and then they had an inflation crisis, and it actually seems to be the drop in child birth rates has coincided with the inflation that happened, and so it seemed to be pretty linked to economics. The argument against me, in favor of you, is that actually, if you look at serious improvements in child birth rates going up, it's religious communities,
yes,
particularly Israel. But in Israel, it's not just Orthodox communities. Even the more secular Israelis are having, on average, about three. When the Orthodox, it's like 7 or 8 or something like that. So it does seem to be a cultural issue, which I think is probably, if you change the culture, if we could sort the cultural issue out.
Well, that's why what I'm talking about in relation to status is meaningful. There is a high status to having children in Israel, right? You get a lot of affirmation. People love children. They're not seen, not heard. They're not just an inconvenience that's going to make noise on the train. Or babies screaming on the plane.
Boo. I need to get you some noise cancelling earbuds.
Right. No. And if you have lots of children, you are admired. You're admired, and you simply cannot say that about the U.S. or the U.K. If you have more than 3 children in either of our countries, people think you're a little weird. They like, what's your problem? Or are you, imitating Elon Musk? Or it has to do with the norms. There still are some of them, and the norm is to have very few children or none. That's the norm.
Yes.
And so it's like having more children than that is, what's your problem? But we do not have pro-family cultures now.
Tina, welcome, and thank you for your contribution. Tina, my moderator, has said also on this point, what about the hundreds of thousands of missing children? ties into all this, surely. Well, yeah. Where do the missing children go? Are people tallying that up with the fact that all of a sudden there's less children in the world? Not just less. Well, I suppose it would tie in with people not having children as much as well. I mean, I think there's been a great push with regards to the girl power thing, like what she was talking about, right, which I go on about often enough. But there could also be the thought of, well, who wants to bring a child into this world when there's so much more chance of them going missing than there used to be, regardless of how much CCTV and all these other safety measures, supposed safety measures that we've got and we're implementing in stealth, they're going missing, quicker than ever and more often than they used to. So yeah, maybe that does tie in with it, Tina. Very good point. Let's get back to our video. And that's another good point. Yeah, the rate of abortion is also very high. So yeah, I wonder if all of these things are being counted in. But I do get her point. I do, we can't ignore the fact that when we look around, there's far less young mothers than what there used to be. And, women are becoming mothers at an older age and they're having less children, if they're having any at all, so it can't be denied. Certainly in the West, anyway, and with the indigenous so-called white people, that is definitely the case. But let's get back to the interview, back to Lionel Shriver.
And the, if you look at, I've not done any analysis of films and that and TV, but we don't have that much of the kind of Brady Bunch stuff that I grew up with. Did you grow up with the Brady Bunch? Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, it's a kind of corny TV show where two people who were widower and widow got together and they each have 3 kids.
Right.
And so they have 6 children.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily the Brady Bunch, but we did have a lot of family sitcoms. We had The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was aired over here. We had things like Neighbours and Home and Away. There was The Sullivans. There was Crossroads. It was all families. Emmerdale. Well, it was called Emmerdale Farm back then. Coronation Street, EastEnders. That was more family oriented. Like the storylines was all about families and communities being together as opposed to them being splintered. Now it seems to be the storylines, everything's fashionable for them to be splintering off. Brookside was very much a small housing close where in those houses they were all predominantly families, and the happy ending was when they would stick together, as opposed to the happy ending was when someone would leave. Yeah, there was a lot more family shows. There was The Good Life, they were a couple. But there was a lot of shows. Was it Desmond or something like that? In Barbers in Peckham. There was lots of family and community oriented shows, unlike today, pushing us to all be splintered off. So anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts thus far. Let's get back to what she's got to say.
Right. So
so
that's a very pro-family show.
You go back to sort of films about the 1950s, and it would be that the prejudice is against the childless mother or the childless woman, and now we flipped it. Is that sort of another version of caring?
Yeah, there's now a prejudice against the family mother, the mother who's got her husband and her children, the so-called nuclear the family unit. Now there's stigma against that by the single parent, predominantly single mothers, who I can't help but want the world to think that they're the best just because they're raising their child on their own, but they're not the best because every child needs a mother and a father. They need that balance. The father figure typically instills, typically, not in every case, but typically, right, instills discipline and provides security for the unit as well. Like, it's pretty hard on men, but their role is vital. And women, I think a lot of the time, they're not keeping a hold of their men because they're more interested in feeding their ego as opposed to being in that loving relationship and creating a family for their young to develop and flourish in. Like, there's a big difference between what we're seeing going on and children actually being raised. And we all know that the fatherless child is more likely to end up sucked into criminality of some sort. Not always, but typically, right? They're more likely going to get sucked into it than if they had a father figure in their lives as they were growing up, and the impact that it has on their schoolwork, just to say the least. And then their behaviors, because they haven't had that discipline. And when I look around and I see a lot of single mothers, and they're too busy looking at their smartphones, their nails, getting their hair done and all the rest of it, to actually be paying attention to their children. They just put these devices in front of their children, who then end up with, funnily enough, ADHD because of all the flashiness of, flicking from one screen to the next, and the dopamine hit problem that comes with smartphones and tablets and all the rest of it, instead of like interacting with their children and teaching them interpersonal skills just by interacting with them, and letting their children pick up on, let's say, the micro expressions on the face. You've got a lot of these Muppets going around with masks on still. So their children are going to grow up a lot more naive, a lot thicker, really, a lot more stupid, and therefore a lot less equipped for the world, because they won't be picking up on the cues on faces. They won't be learning all of this, like absorbing it like sponges, like kids do. Instead, they're kind of closed off from human interaction and sitting with these devices. So there's a lot of, it's an abusive situation. I dare say it is child abuse, whether the woman is intending to do that to our child or not. It's still neglect of their needs, and it's a disruption of their natural development, and thus, that is basically the definition of abuse. Like, you've got the disruption and interference with the sexual development of the child, right? So that means sexual abuse. So if you've got the disruption and interference of the psychological development, the emotional development, which has an impact on the physical development, all the rest of it, right? Because of what that does to the brain and the development and the stunted growth of neural pathways and all the rest of it, it's a form of abuse. It's child abuse. So there's a lot of these women who, I think they do it deliberately, not the abuse part, but keeping their children from having a father figure, which is leading to high crime rates, as well as the importation of the criminals. But that's That's another topic for another evening. Let's get back to the video before I ramble on even more.
For the other so much that we feel so sorry for the childless mother that we've gone all the way now where the childless mother is more normal. Oh, sorry, childless woman. I'm being silly. Sorry.
Yeah, it used to be that the barren woman was an object of pity, and that is no longer. In fact, back when I was promoting We Need to Talk About Kevin, which gets blamed for a number of people deciding not to have children, that I had to say, hold on here. I think that the fact that I don't have children means I am not subject to stigma enough. We have removed the stigma, and that was almost 25 years ago. And even then, I didn't feel that anyone was criticizing me or felt sorry for me. I didn't get pressure from my parents that I should have been having children. They thought on balance, I probably shouldn't have kids, right? That's my own parents. I didn't feel any social pressure. I didn't go to parties and have people say, oh, you don't have any children. None of that. It was fine. And it was already entering the period where having chosen to not have children was becoming normal. And it was not being questioned. And so we've gone through more than a generation since then where the fertility rate has continued to come down. And that's because we have changed the norm, and we're not subjecting women. I mean, I'm not saying they should be, but maybe a little, maybe not outright stigma, but maybe
smidgen of shame,
a little sense of social pressure, right? That's in the positive direction toward motherhood, that you have to resist in order to remain childless. But because if the culture doesn't change, then we're living in a civilization which is going to start to wither. And I think that would be a pity.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how do we change that culture around? A little bit of.
Well, I guess that's what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah. Well, identifying the problems is a good start, I guess. We've covered a lot of ground, and we could talk for hours more. Before I invite you over to the Substack to talk about your experience in the arts, because I think we might have some common experience there, is there anything else on this topic, on this matter, that you think worth noting? And where can people find A Better Life, your novel, your latest piece of work, which has got the badge of honor of being skewered by the New York Times and all the progressives alike?
Well, you can get it just about anywhere you get books. Amazon, bookstores, widely available. HarperCollins has made sure of that.
Good.
So it is one of the only novels I know of that represents the perspective of the native-born population. The standard, especially in literary fiction, has been to tell the story of immigration exclusively from the perspective of the immigrant. And I think that makes sense. The immigrant has more of a journey, a quest, a structure to what he or she is about. You're going somewhere, facing obstacles, probably put at some disadvantage. That's a formula for a very sympathetic character. The native-born population, at best, in novels about immigration, have been a mere backdrop. They're not going anywhere. They're literally not going anywhere. So they might seem uninteresting, but I can testify as somebody who has been faithfully reading the comments under articles about immigration in the Daily Telegraph. There is an enormous amount of rage in the UK over this issue. It is, people feel they haven't been listened to, that their votes have been ignored, that their feelings are not only unimportant, but they have been demonized. To not want your country to radically transform ethnically and demographically has been cast as bigoted and unacceptable. This is an issue. But I believe that immigration touches very primitive, psychological and anthropological red buttons, and this is not a problem for just Westerners or white people. It is what all people, humans, are like. And you find it's not even a racial issue. You find that when you bring in very large numbers of people from elsewhere to just about any country, the people who live there don't like it. Small numbers of people, interesting, nice ethnic restaurants, but large numbers of people in a short period of time makes the people who live there already angry. And that's been the case in South Africa in relation to the Zimbabweans, Colombia in relation to the Venezuelans, Nigeria kicked out something like 2 million Ghanaians who had immigrated into the country. This is not black and white. It is not the West versus the rest. It is what people are like. And you can say we shouldn't be that way, but it doesn't change the fact that that's the way we are.
Yeah.
That's the way everybody is. And Westerners have been told explicitly and implicitly that they may not feel these emotions, that they may not feel resentful, that their neighborhoods have completely transformed, that they walk down the street and nobody is speaking their language, that they do not feel that they're in their own home any longer. All of that, not acceptable. You have to get with the program. You have to regard it as wonderful.
Yep.
Diversity is our strength. And, fiction has participated in this. And I'm pushing back a little. That's why I'm getting so much stick.
Yeah. Well, it comes right back to the beginning of our conversation about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who you just look at the national pile-on he got for...
He should never have apologized.
Well, he apologized for how people felt about what he said, not what he said.
That's a fine distinction that is lost on most people.
Possibly. Although, having been through such, not quite the scale of pile-on, I didn't have the Prime Minister coming after me. I understand why some people feel defensive. But, Lionel Shriver, it's been an absolute pleasure. We did go there. We managed to get deep into the issues that I was hoping to explore with you. And
good. You're one of my favorite podcasters.
I'm so flattered that you listened.
So I'm delighted to appear with you, and I look forward to many more of these podcasts with other people. You get great guests.
Well, I hope you'll come back onto the show. But let's go over to the Substack, where some of our Substackers have questions for you, and I want to talk to you about the art. So, Lionel Shriver, I encourage people to go read A Better Life, but otherwise, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Remigration, which is the politically correct term for mass deportations. Mm-hmm. Where are you, Lionel, on that issue?
It is very hard to get people off your territory once you let them in.
Booyah. Yes, big up Winston Marshall, one of Mumford & Sons' finest. I've put the link to that video in the description. Also, the link to Winston Marshall's channel. Please go over there, subscribe, like the content, watch the content, leave a comment, and give him some support because he's mint.
Smooth moderator.